Hello everyone. In this video I'll be talking about the Angular components. If you navigate to this github.com, and if you goes to this Angular repository, where you can find they have created a new repository, and the name is components. So earlier it was a part of a Angular material, and now it is a part of components. So Angular components is a more than a materials. It's not only Angular material. And Angular team has added so many new components for us. Like they have added YouTube-Player, Google Maps. Then we can use a ClipBoard from the CDK, and so many new components in a material design. So in this video we will be talking about how to integrate YouTube-Player in our Angular 9 application, how to integrate Google Maps with Angular 9 application. We will see map marker, map info window, polyline, and many more with a Google Map. And finally we will see how we can use a ClipBoard using that component development kit to our Angular 9 application. So as a first part, I'll be explaining lab 1, how to integrate the YouTube-Player in our Angular application. So I have created a brand new application using Angular CLI, and as you can see, my CLI is updated to version 9, and it has created a project with version 9. And now let us say in order to use that YouTube-Player in our Angular application, first I need to install the YouTube-Player package. So I'll say npm install @Angular YouTube-Player. So it will install the required packages from npm.js, and then we can use that YouTube-Player in our Angular application as a control. So it has installed that YouTube-Player for us. Now what I'll do is on my app.module.ts, like whenever we use any package, we need to import it in our Angular application. So I'll say import, and let us say @Angular, and I'll say YouTube-Player. Inside YouTube-Player I'll say import the YouTube-Player module, and I'll also declare that module inside my imports array. That's it. Now we are good to go to use that YouTube-Player control in our Angular application. But again, on your index.html, we need to add that script file. So over here I'll say add a script file, and I'll say I'll give the path to my let's say YouTube API. So I'll say https and / I'll say www.youtube.com/iframe_API. And now on my app component.html, if I navigate over here, I'll get rid of this everything. Instead of this, I'll say YouTube-Player. So over here I'll say video ID, and we just need to pass whatever the video we want to display in our component. So I'll open up my talk which I delivered at NG India conference 2019. And if you don't know what is NG India, it's India's largest Angular conference. And I'll say okay, I want to have the ID for this video. So I'll only copy the ID for this video, and what I'll do is on my project I'll say this is my video ID. That's it, and we are all done. We can now serve our application, and it will display the video. And now if we open up our browser, we can say it will display the YouTube-Player. So earlier we used to give the sanitize our URL and everything, right? But it's just now a component. As a next step, I'll show you how we can integrate Google Maps with our Angular 9 application. So now I will install the Google Map package for the Angular library, and which will install Google Map for our Angular application. And then we have to provide the API key on our index.html. So on line number 10 I have this Google Map API. Over here inside this key parameter you have to pass your own API key. You can get your own API key on a developer.google.com maps, and then you can search for JavaScript map API. I'll provide my API over here, and then we can use Google Map in our component. So now, having installed that Google Map package, we need to import it to our app modules, and then we can use it anywhere in our components. So I'll say open up my map component, and in our map component I'll say Google Map. I'll say a few properties. Height I'll say 500 px, width I'll say 100%, and then I'll say, let's say for example, center. So now this center property, I can say that whatever the location or whatever the latitude and longitude, you want to keep it as a center of your map. So I'll say center, and on my TypeScript, so that's map demo dot TypeScript file, I'll create one variable, one property, and I'll name it to center over there. So, and I'll assign it a type of google.maps.lat-long literal. So I'll say lat-long literals, and on my ng on init, I will initialize this center with my current location. So what I'll use that navigator class dot get I'll say geolocation dot get current position, and in that get current position I'll use that arrow function syntax, and I'll say this dot center, and I'll initialize the center with my current location. So on that center we need to set the latitude, and I'll say x dot coords dot latitude, as well as longitude. I can say that x dot coordinates dot longitude. Now when now if everything correct, and we call our map demo component on our root component, so let's say I'll get rid of this everything, and instead I'll say map demo, and now let me rerun the project application. So I'll say ng serve, and if everything went correct, we can see our application up and running. Yes, so now we can see it is pointing us to the my current location on the map. So now as a next step, we will add the marker to plot on our map to locate our current location. So now I'll open up my application again. I'll create the markers array, and on my HTML I'll say I'll use the map markers. So I'll use another properties map marker, and then on that map marker I'll say I'll loop through my markers array, and whatever the markers I am having, I want to display it on my map markers. So here that map marker is having some different properties. We can set it to position. So position is a parameter which have our markers location. So here I'll say item dot position, and then we will have you can say label, and here I can say item dot label. Make sense? And on my TypeScript, on our ng lifecycle hook, when we have the current coordinates, right after there I'll say this dot markers array dot push. Now marker is our array and we can push our markers object. So to save our time, I have created the markers object and I'll paste it over here. And what I created inside that object, I created property position, which holds the lat long of the marker where we want to put our marker. Then I'll saying label, title, and options. Options I am using that animation. So by default there are two types of animation, drop and bounce. So we can use any of them. On our marker, I'll do some alignment over here to make it visible to you. I'll use another property and I'll say title, and here I'll use item dot title, as well as I'll use options, and inside that option I'll say item dot options. Now if we run our application again, and if everything is correct, we can see we have that marker on our map. Right now, as a next step, what we will do is whenever we click on any of the location on our map, we want to create a callback. So our map is having a map click method. On that map click method, we will receive the latest latitude and longitude for that location, and we want to add that location to our marker. So as a next step, what we will do is on the Google map parameter, I'll say okay, create the click event for the map, and I'll say map click. So I'll say on map click, and I'll pass the $event parameter, and on my TypeScript I'll create this event over right before the constructor, and I'll say instead of that $sign and say event, and we can give it a type. So we can say it's a google.maps.mouse event, and inside that I'll say let's add this location, or whenever whatever the location user clicks, we want to add marker over there also. So before plotting our markers to there, we need to have a current latitude and longitude where we clicked. So what I'll do over here, I'll say console.log, and I'll say this dot event. Alright, so I'll say event dot lat long dot whatever the latitude or longitude we can want, we can print it on our console. So now if we run the application again, and if we open up the map on our console, we can see, so whenever we click over here, it will print our latest latitude. So we can use this method and we can create the object again. So what I'll do over here, I'll copy this marker.push function again, and on my let's say map click, whenever user press this, instead of having location from the center, now I will get the location from the event dot lat long dot latitude. Now latitude is a method, as well as I can have the longitude from here also. So I'll say lat long and longitude. And now let us say if I run this application again, and whenever a user click on our map, we will have the dynamic markers on the map. Alright, now as a next step, we will see a map marker info window in action. But before that, let me show you a few more parameters of that map. We can set the zoom level through the TypeScript file also, and we can also set the map type through this options parameter. So what I'll do is, on my map I'll set the zoom level. So like I'll say zoom, and I'll assign it some value, as well as I can set the options, and I'll say google.maps.map options, and I'll assign it some value. Let's say I want to display a hybrid map type, so here I'll say hybrid. And now if everything is correct, and if we rerun the application, we can see the hybrid map in action. Now as a next step, we will I'll show you that map info window. So right after the map marker, I'll use that map info window, and inside that map info window I want to display whatever the marker user clicked. I want to display its content over here. So I'll using the string interpolation, and I'll create a content property over there on my TypeScript. So whenever user press that marker, we need to create a click event for the marker. Again, the event name is same, map click, and on that map click I'll say on marker click, and I'll pass two parameters. First I'll pass the reference of the marker, so I'll use the template binding, and I'll use map marker, and I'll use this map marker as one of the argument, and as a second parameter I'll say item.info, so that the info is like a string that you set when you created a marker. So whenever user press this marker, I want to display it over here. I'll create the callback function over here, and instead of this item.info, I'll say to info only, and this map marker should be type of map marker. Alright, and now whenever user press that marker, I want to access that map info window. So we will use that view child syntax. So I'll say let's use that view child. So at view child, and I'll use that map info window, and I'll create the name info, which is a type of map info window. So I'll say map info window, and then inside that map info window I want to open the marker. So over here I'll say we need to create the property content over here, and which is a type of string, and we assign it some empty value. So first what I'll do is I'll say this dot content equals to item. So whatever the marker user pressed, we want to display its info inside the content, and then I can say this dot info. Now info is a reference to our map info window, and open is its method, and inside that I want to print my map marker. Alright, so now if I save this application, and if everything went correct, we can see our map info window in action. Now let's add one more marker, and let's say map info window. This is how we can use Google Maps with Angular application. So now as a final step, we want to use that ClipBoard. So in order to use that ClipBoard, we have to add Angular material package first. So I'll say add Angular material. It will add both material and CDK package for our Angular application. It will take a while. I'll be back when it is finished. Alright, so Angular material as well as CDK got installed. Now first in our app module, we have to add the import for the CDK. So over here I'll say import as a statement add Angular CDK, and from the CDK I will say import the ClipBoard module. So over here I'll say ClipBoard module, and also I need to declare this clipboard module inside the imports array. So I'll again say import clipboard module. Now I have generated a component clipboard demo, and on that component I have done a simple designing. I have two text area. One text area is I already make it disabled and I assigned it some value, and another text area I'll make it enable, and whatever the text we are having inside this text area, I want to copy it through this copy button. Alright, so now on my TypeScript I have already created this code. It's just a text, let's say it's a typing mistake, let's say demo text to copy, and whatever this value this code is having, I want to copy it to the another text area. So now if I run the application using that ng serve, and I'll show you the design first, and then we will move to the copy the content. So like this is our application. Whatever the text we are having over here, when I press this copy text and when I paste it over here in this second text area, it should copy the entire text of the first text area. So now to do so, I have this component open. I'll name it to like a clipboard demo component, and on its HTML, on this button I'll write the CDK content to copy. So here I'll say CDK copy to clipboard, and I'll say assign it a code. Now that code is a string in which we are having our code of the text area. Make sense? This is just the only single line of code you will require to perform that copy. Now if we rerun the demo again in our browser, and let me press this copy text, and if I right click and paste over here, you can see the text is copied. This is how we can use newly added components to our Angular 9 application. Thank you for watching.